The African Americans who went to war were placed under the French and were issued weapons and uniforms underneath them, treated fairly well until they were told not to because they didn't want the African Americans to get used to well treatment. On the 18th of May, 1917, Congress passed the Selective Service Act requiring all male citizens between the age of 21 and 31 to register for the draft. Even before the act was passed, African American males from all over the country eagerly joined the war effort. They viewed the conflicts as an opportunity to prove their loyalty, patriotism, and worthiness for equal treatment in the United States. When World War I broke out, there were 4 all-black regiments, the 9th and 10th Cavalry, and the 24th and 25th Infantry. The men in these units were considered heroes in their communities within 1 week because of the quotas for African Americans were filled. Within 1 week of Wilson's declaration of war, the War Department had to stop accepting black volunteers because the quotas for African Americans were filled. The African Americans who went to war were placed under the French and were issued weapons and uniforms underneath them. Okay, so ours was the role of minorities during World War I, and their role was small but largely important. There were several different types of minorities in the war, and the work they did for the United States was all different and progressive. Women, African Americans, immigrants, all formed the diverse body of minorities. Women found employment in transport, nursing, working in factories making ammunition, the Women's Royal Air Force, where they worked on planes as mechanics, on farms, and the Women's Land Army and shipyards and more. Before 1914, these jobs had been for men only, with the exception of nursing. Several women took factory jobs in place of their husbands. Working in ammunition factories in World War I was dangerous, hard work. The female workers were exposed to dangerous chemicals and poisons with little or no protection, as well as explosives. Women in some of the factories were nicknamed canaries because their skin took on a yellow hue because of exposure to sulfur. Approximately 400 women who worked in the factories died from handling shells with TNT in them. During the war, other women went to war with the soldiers to read and write letters for those soldiers who could not.
Immigration jumped from 3.5 million to 9 million in the first decade of the new century. By 1910, Eastern and Southern immigrants made up 70% of the immigrants that were coming into the country. Once World War I started, immigration decreased significantly because of immigration restrictions in the 1920s. The Immigration Restriction Act was put into effect on May 26, 1924. This act limited the annual number of immigrants who could be admitted from any country to the 2% of the number that were already in the United States. This act took over the 1921 Emergency Quota Act, which restricted Southern and Eastern Europeans who migrated into the United States. Many immigrants left their homeland seeking religious, racial, and political freedom. Others wanted to get out of a poor economy and famine that devastated their countries. Italians, Hungarians, Poles, Slovakians, and Bohemians worked in coal or steel mines. Greeks worked in textile mills. Russians and Polish Jews worked with needle trades and pushcart markets in New York. Immigrants flocked to the cities hoping to create a better life. Many immigrants worked in factories, but life was extremely difficult. Many industries had dangerous working conditions, and workers received low wages. Most immigrants lived in tenements nearby the factories. These homes were often overcrowded and unclean. Immigrants came over in search of a better life, and many were let down when they realized that it was not perfect and far too difficult. As a result, some went back to their homelands.